Hello and welcome to my demo. I hope this video will show you the steps that I used to build this great blue heron, and that I hope that my techniques and methods inspire you to explore new directions and build on my approach. I chose to build this during the COVID period. I spent March till November building it in my spare time, which I had plenty, and that the primary thing that really got me to do this was that I was going to, for myself, using a new technique using UV curable adhesives. By doing that, I eliminated the constraints that typically come with foiling and cane, and so it allowed me to build this without using any of it. There's not any cane or foiling required to build this, and as a result, it allowed me to use stained glass in different ways. So let me start with the demo. This heron is just under 34 inches high. It weighs 25 pounds, and it consists of over 700 pieces of glass, and of that glass, it's 10 varieties of glass, obviously the orange here, but most of it's blues and whites that I used. Now, the way I started out, let me walk through the steps, is I started out with a photograph of a heron, and I used that to create the shape that I needed to begin my work. And let me turn the camera so I could do a little show and tell for you. As you can see on my left, I scaled this from here to that to make it a full-size heron, that 34-inch heron I mentioned. And from that, I was able to match it up and build a copper frame out of electrical wire, stripped electrical wire, and as well as copper tubing that served as the structural foundation for the frame to sit on. It was welded in or soldered in about 6 different locations. That also included two 45-degree elbows for the knees and 2 T's that connected the 2 legs and one of the cattails to give it structural integrity. And then those legs passed through the base, which you can see is a very pretty piece of glass I got that simulated a sort of an algae-filled pond with flowing water. And so from there, I took this frame once it was completed and covered it with plaster, saran wrap first and then plaster, and it was joint compound. And once that, because it's going to be temporary, I just needed a solid figure so that I could put a paper mache mold over it, and that's what you see here. And once I made the paper mache mold and cut it in half, I now had the ability to mark it up, and all of the pieces of glass I used were in hexagon shape, where I could vary the lengths and the widths. They also were beveled, so I could curve them to fit the shape of the bird's body. And in order to connect it is where the UV curable adhesives came in, and that was a game changer, because it opened up so much more opportunity, and I'll get into that now. The epoxy I used was called Rapid Fix. It came with a flashlight. The first order I recommend, because you need the flashlight, or the UV flashlight, came with a flashlight and a tube. I ended up using little more than 6 tubes for the 700 pieces. So I don't know if that works out to one tube of glue per 100 pieces, but that's what it was for me. And I did have a learning curve, so I did have to undo some parts, which I could vouch. It's hard to separate this stuff once you got it hardened, but I did use up that much. But the reason I chose Rapid Fix is that it's told by a company called Lighthouse for the Blind, and all of their sales revenues go to support services for children who are visually impaired. So it's a good thing. As I said, there are other varieties out there. I didn't use any of them. This seemed to work. I never questioned it. Also, the beauty about it is it just bonds so well. You could grind right after it's hardened. It takes about 10 to 20 seconds to harden. And right after that, you can grind the two bonded pieces together. And I'll get into that a little later, talking about examples. But what I did to improve my production time is I purchased a higher end pen light. This has twice the lumens, and it cut my time down to 10 seconds from the 20 seconds that the red one has. And at least it served as my backup. And would serve as a backup if the other one broke, stopped working. So at least you don't have to stop your work in order the tool. So it might be worth starting with the one that you first get, and then if you see a need to get improved production time, get a better one. And if you do get the better one, and maybe even with the other one, it's recommended you get UV eye protection, and that's what these look like. These were made by 3M, I believe. So once you have that, and you're starting to work on the pieces, as I said, it really opens up dimensions. For instance, even in your present work, if you're working on something that has a small amount of tiny pieces, foiling those takes time, but more importantly, it breaks up the visual look of that piece. I'll give you an example. I did a Red Sox logo for my son, and on the top of the sock, the Red Sox, on the top of the sock is vertical stripes, white, red, white, red, white, red, and I think there's 7 of them. And when you try to use foiling, it takes away a lot, because you end up with red, black, white, black, red, black, white, black, red, and it just doesn't look right. At least to me, it didn't look right. So what I did in that case, I did like sort of a hybrid use of this. I still maintained the rest of the work in foiling, but for those stripes, I just easily made vertical stripes, bonded them together, and then ground the upper and lower piece, as well as the sides to fit what I needed for the piece. And I foiled the outer edges, and it looks so much nicer. So here's one example of how you could maybe utilize what you've learned from my demo here to make a heron, a 3D heron, but you could apply it to your present work. So then, once I would do a section, I'd do the same thing. For instance, when I did this section here, I was able to focus on the connecting the inner pieces, but I didn't have to worry about the outer edges. They could be uneven, it didn't matter, because once I was done with that section, I could even out the outer edges by grinding it, and then it would fit really nicely. For example, I'll go back to the heron, I should say. But if you can see this piece here, this blue piece, it matches and it fits perfectly with the upper piece, which I did separately. And so I just matched those together, and it worked perfectly. Actually, let's see if I can demonstrate this. If I put the UV light on it, you can see the glue, but you can't see it with the naked eye. I think you can see that. But it's kind of cool, because you can check your work, and it's easy to do cleanup that way, because you'll have overflow on the outside of your glass, and you clean up quickly. But then as I built the pieces on the bottom in the mold, and then attached them to the frame, when I got to about this, get the bottom done, I could then no longer have to use the upper, the mold, because I could start building the glass on top. and the feathers is freeform. Because once you get the initial layer, you just keep building on that. And the head I needed to form for. The neck I didn't necessarily need to form for, but I used it. And then once I was done, I could concentrate on the bottom half, the base. Now the base starts with a brass base that was from an antique floor lamp, and I had to tap 3 holes in it, so I could fit the 2 legs from the heron and the 1 entry with the cattail. It looks like it just touches the bird, but it actually inserts into the bird. That gives it the full strength. This bird does not move. Very steady. When I had it on 2 legs, it wobbled a little. So I'm glad I thought that out. Put that back up. As I mentioned, the legs went through the glass. Well, I had to drill 3 holes in that pretty nice piece of glass. That was scary. But once that was completed, I put grommets, rubber grommets, around the legs, each entry point where they matched, to protect the metal from hitting the glass. And it also provided, allowed the glass to be stable, wouldn't shift around. Now to hold the glass, I built using the same copper tubing as the legs, a copper tube with 6 brass tabs that have their pads on top to have the glass sit on. So this is really floating glass, and this I call it a bumper. The copper tubing serves as a bumper, so if anything hits it, it hits the copper first. And then on top, to give it the nice pond look, I made copper lily pads, copper lily flowers, copper grass, copper cattails, and even the bird's feathers at the top here. What they're known for is copper also. And those feathers are, I put a blue patina on them, and I have red patina on the flower. There's combinations of green patinas, brown patinas. The grass is a combination of all 4, blue, green, brown, and red. And the legs also were, I applied a patina on the copper. I also added rocks, which kind of pull some of the white down so it balances the piece. And let's see what else, anything else. And so that, all of that was using once again, the UV epoxy to attach it. You can bring the light up through the glass to adhere the copper and the rock and such. And that completes that. But then on the last thing I did was, you can see it in the drawing, in the picture. I also included LED strip light. I wrapped it around the outer edge, inside outer frame, facing inward, and they would reflect off of this chrome tube. The same thing with the copper tube that rises here is chrome. And so the light was diffused. If I had it the other way, you'd see dots, lots of dots on the heron. So this gave it a better look when the light went on. So I'll do that now. So now it looks like it's flashing. To the naked eye, you don't see that. It's the camera doing that. But I could change the intensity of the light, low to high, high to low. I could change the color. Is blue, and I wasn't sure what color I was going to use when I was building this. I wasn't going to know until I finished, but I ended up choosing just the white, and I keep it on different varying intensities based on my desire. So that completes the demo of the bird, and I hope that you might have picked up some ideas from this that you could apply to your present work, or if you might be challenged to build your own 3D sculpture. because it does open up a lot more opportunities. And so thanks for your time.